When I first found out that my girlfriend had slept with another man, it felt like my whole world came crashing down. I never saw it coming. We had been together for a couple of years and I thought we were happy. We talked about our future, made plans, and shared dreams. I trusted her with everything, my heart, my time, my emotions. And then out of nowhere I discovered she'd been with someone else. I was blindsided. The first thought that ran through my head was pure disbelief. It didn't make sense. How could she do this to me? We were in love, or at least I thought we were. I thought we had something real, something that couldn't be broken by something as petty as infidelity. But I guess I was wrong. When the truth hit me, it wasn't just the betrayal of her actions that hurt. It was the fact that she'd lied to my face for so long. I had no idea. All the times she told me she loved me, all the moments I thought were just between us, how could they have meant nothing to her? I felt like a fool, looking back at everything through this new lens of betrayal. The guy she slept with wasn't some random stranger either. It was someone I knew, someone I considered a friend. That made it worse. I could never shake the image of them together, and every time I saw him after I found out, it was like a knife twisting in my gut. How could he do this? How could he knowingly hurt me, knowing how much I cared about her? And how could she throw our relationship away for him? The anger inside me grew by the day. I felt like I was drowning in confusion, anger, and sadness all at once. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and couldn't stop thinking about it. Every thought seemed to lead me back to that one question: why? Why would she do this? What was wrong with me? Was I not good enough? Did she never love me like I thought she did? I thought about confronting her, but part of me knew there was nothing she could say that would make it better. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. And deep down, I knew that the trust we had built together had been shattered beyond repair. In the weeks that followed, I couldn't get the betrayal out of my head. Every time I tried to move forward, I was dragged back to the pain. I replayed everything in my mind, the moments I thought were happy, the plans we made, the way she looked at me before I knew the truth. It all felt like a lie. I had been living in this illusion, and now the mask had been ripped off, revealing a harsh reality. I was angry, hurt, and confused. I couldn't just let it go. I had to make them pay, even though I knew deep down that revenge wouldn't fix anything. At first I thought about doing something simple, something that would directly hurt her. But then I realized that wouldn't be enough. If I was going to get revenge, I wanted it to hit him where it would hurt the most, where it would shake his entire world. That's when I started to learn about his life. I found out that he was married. I had seen him around with a woman before, but I never paid much attention to it. To be honest, I had always thought of him as a friend, someone I could trust. But now, knowing he was married and still went behind my back with her, it made me see everything differently. His wife had no idea about any of this. She was completely innocent, and that didn't sit right with me, but it didn't matter. This was about him. He needed to feel the weight of what he had done, just like I was feeling it. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had an opportunity. He had a life, a wife, a family. If I could ruin that, if I could somehow make him lose everything, it would be the ultimate revenge. I didn't care about the consequences anymore. All I could focus on was getting back at him. I wanted him to understand the betrayal, the way I felt in that moment of discovery, when everything you thought you knew falls apart. I wasn't sure how it would play out at first. I didn't know how to approach his wife or how to even get close to her. But the idea of seeing him suffer, of seeing the man who had hurt me pay in the most personal way, kept me going. Every step felt like it was leading me closer to something bigger, something that would make him regret everything. And maybe, in some twisted way, it would give me the closure I thought I needed. I knew that if I wanted to make this work, I had to get close to his wife without raising any suspicion. At first, the thought of deceiving her seemed wrong. She didn't deserve to be involved in any of this. But the more I thought about it, the more I convinced myself that she was just collateral damage in the grand scheme of things. After all, he was the one who started this mess. She was just in the way. It wasn't long before I bumped into her by chance. It felt almost too perfect, like fate was giving me an opportunity I couldn't ignore. We were in a local cafe, and I didn't plan on seeing her there. But when our eyes met, I felt a rush of adrenaline. She didn't recognize me at first, but we ended up talking for a few minutes. Her warmth and kindness caught me off guard. She was nothing like the woman I imagined she would be: standoffish, suspicious, or guarded. Instead, she was easy to talk to, and before I knew it, we'd exchanged numbers. The more we talked, the more I realized how easy it was to connect with her. She was sweet, a little naive maybe, but there was a charm to her. I started to feel a mix of guilt and excitement as our conversations grew deeper. It was like a game, one I knew I was playing unfairly, but the anger from what he had done to me kept me going. Every time I felt the pull of guilt, I reminded myself of the pain and humiliation I had endured. What I was doing felt wrong, but it was also right in a way. He needed to feel the consequences of his actions. As the weeks went by, we saw each other more often. It started out casual, but the chemistry between us grew stronger. I wasn't pretending to be someone I wasn't. I genuinely liked her, but I knew I had an agenda. I wanted to get close enough to her to make her trust me, so I could take this to the next step. It wasn't long before she confided in me about her marriage. She told me how things had been distant between them, how she felt like he wasn't really there for her anymore. I listened carefully, feeding her words of comfort, while all the while I was thinking about how I could use this to my advantage. I didn't want to hurt her, but I was willing to use her pain for my own twisted sense of justice. The more I learned about her struggles, the more determined I became to follow through. I knew what needed to be done. It was almost like I was in too deep now. The lines had blurred, and I couldn't stop. I had started this, and now I had to finish it. The moment I found out she was pregnant, it was like everything I had planned came to fruition in a single instant. I wasn't sure what I had expected, but the shock of it made everything feel even more real. She was excited, of course, over the moon about the pregnancy. She talked about their future, about how they would raise a family together. But all I could think about was him, and how this would destroy him in ways he couldn't even begin to imagine. I knew I'd done what I set out to do. I had gotten close to her, gained her trust, and let her fall for me. And now I had accomplished the ultimate goal: she was carrying his child. I told myself it wasn't personal. This wasn't about her, it was about him. He had crossed a line by betraying me with my own girlfriend. Now I was returning the favor in a way that would make him suffer for the rest of his life. As the weeks passed, I watched as the tension between her and him slowly started to build. He had no idea what was going on, of course, and that's what made it even more satisfying. I knew he would never see it coming. I'd been careful to keep everything hidden, but I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of power. Every time I saw him, I just imagined the pain he would feel when the truth came out. I had become a part of his life in a way he would never forget, and I wasn't done yet. His wife's excitement, her glowing happiness, only added to the guilt I felt. But that guilt quickly turned into something darker: pride. She had no idea she was carrying the child of a man who had deceived her husband, but I couldn't stop what was happening now. The lie had taken root, and it was spreading, taking hold of everything around us. The moment I imagined him discovering the truth, it almost felt like a release. His world would come crashing down in the most brutal way possible. He would lose everything: his wife, his family, the life he had built, and it would be all because of what he did to me. He wouldn't just lose his marriage, he would lose his dignity. But as I watched everything unfold, something strange started happening. I wasn't feeling the satisfaction I thought I would. Instead of relief, I felt this creeping emptiness. I had gotten what I wanted, but there was no sense of closure. I had destroyed his life, but now I was left wondering what it all really meant. The pain I thought would go away once I got my revenge was still there, lingering, gnawing at me. After everything had unfolded, I thought I would feel triumphant, like I had finally gotten the justice I was owed. But as time passed, I began to realize that the satisfaction I expected never came. The weight of my actions settled on me more heavily than I anticipated. I had destroyed his life, ruined his marriage, and left him in a place where he would never be able to recover. But somehow, it didn't make me feel any better. If anything, it made everything worse. I tried to move on, to convince myself that I had done the right thing, that he deserved it, but I couldn't shake the guilt that haunted me. Every time I thought about her, about the way she trusted me, about the excitement she had for the future, it twisted something inside of me. I wasn't just hurting him, I was hurting her too. She had been innocent in all of this, yet she had become a pawn in my game of revenge. I started to pull away from her, cutting off the connection that I had so carefully built. She noticed, of course, and when she asked me what was wrong, I didn't know how to answer. I had used her, taken what I wanted, and now I couldn't stand to look at her. I knew I wasn't the man she thought I was. The guilt became overwhelming. I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. I was as much a part of the betrayal as he was. Then there was him. Watching his life unravel from the sidelines, I saw him struggle to hold everything together. He was angry, broken, and lost. I knew I was responsible for that, and in some twisted way, it did give me a small sense of power. But it wasn't satisfying like I thought it would be. It was hollow. The pain I had caused him didn't heal my own wounds, it just made me realize how much deeper the cycle of hurt went. As the months went by, I couldn't ignore the realization that my revenge had only left me with more emptiness. I didn't get the closure I was looking for. If anything, it only opened up more questions, more doubts. The pain I had carried from her betrayal was still there, but now it was tangled with regret and the consequences of my own actions. I had wanted to make him feel the way I felt, but I hadn't anticipated the toll it would take on me. In the end, I walked away from everything him, the entire mess. But even as I cut ties and moved on with my life, the weight of what I had done never left me. Revenge had seemed like the answer, but it wasn't. It didn't heal anything, it just spread more pain. And now all I was left with was the broken pieces of a life I had tried to destroy, and the hollow feeling of knowing I was just as lost as everyone else involved.